Alright, so I'm sitting here at work and I was just getting to thinking about some of the outlandish things that I've experienced working security. And it gave me an idea. Something I thought I'd give a shot. Y'all have all heard of the two truth, one lie type thing, right? Well, I thought I'd try something along the lines of 3 security guard stories, 2 of which are lies, 1 of which is truth. It's up to y'all to figure out which is which. So, without further ado, let's go. So, story 1. This was back when I worked for Allied, which, fun fact, I don't work for Allied anymore. That's a story for another day, and it's a doozy, but I digress. This was back when I worked for Allied. I was working second shift, and I had just come in to relieve first shift from their post. And they told me that someone had entered the premises, and to clarify, this was back when construction was still undergoing back at the building that I guarded. This was about, I'd say, a year ago, roughly. So I go into the data center, which is my post, and the person I'm relieving tells me that we had a trespasser, a man who had entered the premises and then wandered around for a bit, looked around, tried to make sure there was no one there, and then vanished into the porta potty. He had been there for about 15 minutes at this point. He told my boss, which was the person I was relieving, he told me to just keep an eye on the person in the porta potty, and if he didn't leave in about, I think it was 20 minutes, then we would call the cops, and they would deal with it. So I sat there for a good 20 minutes, watched the porta potty. He never left. I think the door opened maybe once, but it was only for like a few seconds at most. And so at this point, I'm like, all right, time to call the cops. So I call the cops and tell them what's going on. Tell them it's not an emergency. Just a dude who's sitting in a porta potty who's been there for about close to an hour at this point. They tell me that they will have units come out and investigate. I'm like, okay, good. I hang up the phone and start working on an incident report, like we have to do every single time something like this happens. And I sit there and I wait and I wait. You'd think the cops were southern with how long it took them to get here. The dispatcher told me they would arrive within about 10-15 minutes. Was that southern time or was that normal time? Because if that was southern time, then that means they're going to be here next calendar year. So I just kept on waiting, and sure enough, 2 hours later, they finally show up. In this time, I have been watching this porta potty like a hawk. It felt very weird, and several times I left my office, went outside, and just watched the dude. Because policy was we are not allowed to approach someone like that when they're in a situation like that. Mainly because we don't know what he's doing in there. He could be shooting up. He could be getting high. He could be gearing up to go shoot up the place. We don't know. Hell, like I said, he could be in there pumping himself up, and he's about to bust out of that porta potty with his hands on a weapon. We don't know. So we don't go there. So I would occasionally just walk out of my office, walk down the road a bit, watch what's happening with the porta potty. I would occasionally call out to him, say like, hey, you're on private property, man. You gotta move. I never received a response. I saw the door open another 3 times, I think, but each time was for a few seconds. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, so he's likely getting high. He's probably opening the door to let the smoke out. So I wait. 2 hours later, I came into work at 3. It is now around 5:40. The police finally show up. And my job is to get a statement from the police officer, get their badge number, case number, everything like that, and then write an incident report. Now, they pull up. I go outside and watch them in case they need me. And about 5, was it 5? Yeah, it was about 5 minutes later after they show up and start talking to the dude in the porta potty, he leaves. Now, it was quite dark outside, so I couldn't exactly see what was going on, but I eventually did meet up with the cops after the fact. And they told me he was definitely high, because he came out of the porta potty, literally had damn near doubled over completely and totally, stumbling forward covered in piss and shit. Which is an absolutely wonderful image. So, I told the cops, oh, I see. Okay then. I thanked them. I asked for their badge number, their case number, everything, got all of that, filled it out. And once I got back into the office, I filled out the incident report and continued with my job as normal. So yeah, I had a dude go into a porta potty, get himself so high that he I'm guessing anointed himself in piss and shit, which is, I'm still trying to figure out what kind of drug does that, but nah, the closest thing I got is trank, I'm assuming. I think that's what it does, right? Closest thing I can come up with. So, that's the first story. Second story. This was back when I worked for IGC. This was over at a hotel in downtown Nashville. This was my first ever posting, first ever job as a security guard. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But so far, I had been there for about, I'd say, 2 weeks. Everything was going good. I was starting to get an idea of what I had to do. The receptionists and the night staff seemed to like me, which was honestly surprising, but at the same time good. So, I come in on my usual time at around 10 p.m., walk up the stairs to the lobby, and take my place next to the reception desk. Like right off to the right side, or was it? Well, I guess it would be right side if you're approaching the desk. Right at the right side, just stood there, hands crossed, just being casual, but at the same time being vigilant. A few hours go by. I occasionally interact with some people. They tell me, like, hey, how's it going? I tell them, like, hey, how you doing? And, just common stuff that you do as a security guard when you're handling reception. And about 10-15 minutes past midnight, we notice there's a commotion by the front door, the main door. People have stopped coming in at this point. Everyone has been either asleep or, well, we just weren't getting any visitors. So, a few minutes after we hear that commotion, we hear somebody stumbling up the stairs. And it sounds almost like they're hopping. Well, as it turns out, they very well most likely were hopping. Because as we soon see coming up the stairs was a dwarf. A little person, about, I don't know, about 4 something. He was a little person, definitely a little person. And he was drunk off his ass. Like, it took him, I'm pretty sure, 5-10 seconds to take a single step forward. And he completely ignores us. I don't think he even realized we were there, me and the reception desk. He stumbles over to one of the couches in the lounge, flops down onto the couch, and conks out like a light. And I'm just staring at him confused, like, is he allowed to do that? am I supposed to tell him not to do that? Because again, keep in mind, this is my first posting ever. My first company ever. I had no idea what I was doing. The receptionist turns to me and he goes like, yeah, he's not supposed to be here. He's not a resident. Can you get him up? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, yes ma'am. And I go over to the couch that the dwarf is laying in, and I try to wake him up. I shake him a bit, but nothing happens. He is fully conked out. I have to do straight up literally everything except shake him like a toy in order to wake him up. But I get him up eventually, and he sort of like mumbles, grumbles around, looks up at me and is like, "The fuck you want?" And I'm like, sorry, sir, are you a resident here? And the dwarf says, "Fuck, resident? No, fucking no, man, leave me alone. I'm trying to sleep." And I tell him, "I'm sorry, sir, but if you're not a resident, you can't be doing this. You gotta go." And he's like, "Man, fuck all of that. Leave me alone. I'm trying to sleep." And I tell him, "I'm sorry, sir. I can't do that. If you want, you can go and try to talk to the receptionist. She might be able to help you out and maybe give you a room that you can crash in or let you crash on the couch." And he's like, the dwarf just kind of grumbles and eventually just gets up. You can tell he's having none of this, but he gets up, stumbles his way over to the desk. Apologies. Stumbles his way over to the reception desk, and he tells the lady behind the desk, and bless her heart, by her face, it looked like the day had beaten her bloody. But she still did her best to be patient, even with this drunk dwarf. The dwarf tells her, "Listen, lady, I need to take your couch. I need to just crash for the night, alright? I'm just gonna sleep here, bother no one." And the woman says, "I'm sorry, sir, but if you're not a resident, we can't allow you to do that. You have to be a resident in order to do that. But if you would like, I can set you up with a room starting at $100 a night." And the dwarf cuts her off and he's like, "No, fuck buying a room. I'm not buying a room. I'm just gonna go sleep. Alright, leave me alone." The receptionist, again, is being incredibly patient, tells him, "I'm sorry, sir, but policy dictates we can't allow you to do that unless you are a resident. And even then, we would have to require you to go and sleep in your room." The dwarf cuts her off again. "Fuck policy and fuck you. I'm doing what I want. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep." And at this point, the dwarf starts getting irate. He starts cussing her out. She can't get a word in, and I'm seeing this. I'm slightly panicking because this is the first time in my life I've had to deal with something like this. And me, being the security guard, guess who the receptionist was looking at to handle this? Now, again, I've been trained in de-escalation protocol. I know what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, but what the fuck am I supposed to do with a drunk dwarf who's spouting obscenities? That's completely different. All of the de-escalation protocols we are taught apply to people who are sober, not drunk. So I'm internally panicking, but I go up and I get the dwarf's attention and I tell him, "I'm sorry, sir, but you are causing a scene. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." That's just the first thing that came to mind. I couldn't think of anything else more proper to say. It was just the first thing that came to mind. And he's like, "Well, who the fuck you think you are? Fucking rent a cop." He goes on, starts insulting me. And I tell him, "I'm sorry, sir. I'm not trying to be the bad guy here, but she has requested you leave, and if you don't leave by your own will, I'm afraid I'm going to have to get the cops involved." And the dwarf just straight up says, "Fuck the cops. Call the cops. Fuck you. You trying to fight me or something?" And I don't know how it's devolved from him spouting obscenities toward me and me trying to be as calm and polite as I can to him wanting to fight me. But it did. It did. So I tell him, no, sir, I'm not trying to fight you. I'm just trying to get you out of here so that you can go on with your night and not end up in the drunk tank. And somehow, I'm guessing the alcohol he drank has suddenly made him understand a different language. He took what I said as me saying, yes, I want to fight you. So he gets up, starts yelling at me, spouting obscenities, raises his fists. He's barely standing still. And at this point, I'm just confused. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Like, do I fight back or something? And then the door swings. Poorly. He swings toward my groin, because that is the thing he is level with. And he misses. He ends up hitting my thigh. Now keep in mind, I'm 6'3", 340 something pounds at this point. I'm a big dude. I guess you could say I dwarf the dwarf, but regardless, when he threw that punch and it hit my thigh, I legitimately barely felt it. What it did do, however, was confuse me to high heaven. I literally take a few steps back and I kind of raise my hand as defense because I don't know what I'm supposed to do at this point. This is the first time I've had to deal with this. The guy throws a punch at me. I got punched by a dwarf. Do I fight back? Will I get shunned if I hit a dwarf? Will I get arrested? Do I call the cops? What do I do? So I'm sitting there going through the options in my head, trying to figure out what is the best option to do, and the door swings again. And this time, instead of hitting my thigh, he just full-on misses. His fist grazes my thigh and slides off. And he's going forward still. So his face plants smack dab into my groin. And at this point, I full-on freeze. I am internally freaking out. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do in this scenario. No idea whatsoever. So I literally stand there frozen, slack-jawed, wide-eyed, and more than a little bit violated. And the dwarf is trying to pick himself up off the floor because apparently that first punch had literally made him recoil down onto his ass. I'm staring at him like he is an alien. I am fully paralyzed in confusion. If I was a Pokemon, I doubt a confusion fix would have saved me. I was fucked. But eventually, saying nothing, eyes still wide-eyed, I bend down, pick him up, literally like you would pick up a toddler. I hold him out in front of me, about arm's distance, because at this point, he's hit me twice. I surely am allowed to go hands-on, right? So I literally, like I said, bend down, pick him up like you would pick up a toddler. Hands underneath the armpits. And I hold him out in front of me, arms outstretched. And I walk him and myself down the stairs, out the door of the building, and I literally plop him down onto the sidewalk. I take more than a few steps back, and I stand in front of the doorway to the hotel. I'm still very confused, very shocked, very violated. And the dwarf just straight up looks at me, spouts another few obscenities, and then wanders off down the road. I have no idea what happens to him. I genuinely hope, well, I would say I hope nothing but the best for him, but I don't know. I genuinely don't know. All I know is that after he left, I literally turn on my heels, walk back up to the lobby, go over to one of the chairs, and sit down. I'm pretty sure the receptionist said something to me when she saw me, but I don't remember what she said. I doubt I even heard what she said. I just sat down in that chair, and I stared at the floor trying to process everything that just happened. So that was fun. I'm never going to be able to forget that one. All right. Story number 3. This is the same hotel. Same area, Nashville. Same company, IGC. This was a little bit after the last one I talked about, the one with the dwarf. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. I had just gone home. This didn't directly happen to me. This happened to my replacement, apparently, I think, like 10, 15 minutes after I left. So close enough to where if my relief had been late, it would have happened to me, which is why I'm saying this. So, according to him, this old lady comes into the hotel. She's wearing plain clothes, average clothes. She was apparently homeless, but with her attire, you wouldn't be able to readily see that she is homeless. In her hand, she is holding a jug of maple syrup. And she walks up the stairs into the lobby, looks around for a bit, kind of like stands around away from the receptionist, but still somewhat close, but not close enough for the receptionist to sort of wave her down and ask her how she's doing. She sits there for a good, I'd say, 3 or 4 minutes, if I remember right, how he told me. And then she goes over to the bar. She vanishes behind the wall because the way the facility is spaced out, you have the stairs going up to the main lobby, you have the reception desk on your right, you have a small sitting area in the lobby on your left and front, and then farther in the back near the left behind a wall is the bar. She vanishes behind that wall. My coworker can't see her no more. She comes back out a few minutes later holding a glass of what my coworker said he assumed was vodka. It smelled like vodka. And she walks over to the lobby, finishes her glass of vodka in one gulp, sets the glass down on a counter nearby, and then strips down to her birthday suit, uncorks the bottle of maple syrup, douses herself head to toe in it, and then starts rolling around on the floor moaning. I'm going to say that again. She strips down to her birthday suit, uncorks the bottle of maple syrup, douses herself with it head to toe, and starts rolling around on the floor moaning. I cannot make this up. I didn't get much of the aftermath from the coworker, but I can tell you right now, I am very glad I did not have to handle that, because I probably would have quit on the spot. But according to him, he had to literally go hands-on in order to escort her out. And he said, and I quote, her tits looked like partially rehydrated raisins. It was the most disgusting thing I have ever seen in my life. And I believe him. So, after this whole fiasco, my coworker comes back. He talks to the hotel supervisor, hotel manager, and apparently this lady has been known to do that. She is a frequent flyer. As soon as my coworker heard about all of that, he said he straight up quit that post right then and there. And I don't blame him. I would have done the same thing. Alright, so that's story 3. 2 of those stories that I just told you were lies. And one of them was truth. Can you figure out which one it is? If you know which story was the truth, put it down in the comments. 1, 2, or 3. And don't just randomly guess it. Try to figure it out. I've put context clues that should be able to tell you which one is fake and which one isn't. So, like I said, once you know which one it is, put it down in the comments. 1, 2, or 3. Whoever gets it right will get pinned and hearted. Alright. Y'all stay safe. Peace.